You're live.
Live. Senate Appropriations, May 21st. Backup Bill H472, the OPR bill. And we have Councilor McClinn with us to go over an amendment that I'm proposing the Senate Appropriations Committee make. If Ms. McClinn could share her screen and show us that and walk us through what it does.
Sure.
And then we'll get copies after. It'll be posted to the website after this, and then once we approve it, we'll go to editing and we'll make it on the floor tomorrow, hopefully. Or when it's on the floor. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Katie McClinn, Office of Legislative Counsel. This is an amendment to the early childhood educator portion of the bill. The first instance of amendment deletes section 18 of the bill, which had appropriations in the bill for fiscal year 26 and 27, and also created new positions. So that section would be deleted. And then the second instance of amendment strikes out the effective date section and puts in a new effective date section. And that new subdivision 2, starting on line 18, makes the portion of the bill pertaining to early childhood educators licensure take effect on July 1, contingent on there being a fiscal year 27 appropriation for the implementation of the new chapter. That's it.
So thank you. Why I'm proposing we strike section 18 is that had all the positions created in it. And that was a big deal in our construct of the budget and our agreement with the House and the governor on positions. So we went back and forth on trying to make those contingent on an appropriation or happen in the future. It just seems clearer just to take that out. And then when this gets through the House, they can add the positions back in. It still creates the licensure. The House might take that out, but this says if the licensure goes into effect, the fees would start in July 27, and then the actual program with the board and everything on section 16 creates the structure around it. That would take effect in July 1st, 2027, but only if there's an appropriation.
So it is contingent.
It is contingent on appropriation.
And then would the House go along with that?
They wanted just us to strike everything to deal with the licensure. And so they might go along with this because it doesn't put it into effect. There'd have to be an appropriation.
Yeah.
We took out all the positions. So they might think that this is okay, but they might take it all out.
Yeah.
But this way, at least we're consistent with what we passed in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
They might, want to do a further instance of an amendment back to the Senate without all of that out. But I'm not sure. Any questions?
No, just when we put all the budget document stuff out, we were very careful to list all the positions that were created and everything.
Yeah.
So this puts us in a position where it doesn't feel like we put one sheet out and then a week later we.
Right. Especially if we made that agreement that with the governor in hopes that he wouldn't veto the budget to reduce the positions and then have them add a bunch of positions in another bill.
Yeah.
No, holding up to that agreement. Okay, does anybody not want to have their name on it? Because I can't remember. We can't really do a committee. We can do a committee amendment.
No,
I think we just have to do individual names.
Individuals.
But I'm fine being on
I'm okay then.
Me too.
Okay.
it. Okay.
Yeah. Should have held out.
Keep them on the edge.
Okay, so it'll be amendment from all the members of the committee. Katie, if
Got
you can have that.
I'll make that change and send it through editing now.
Okay. Thanks for your work on it today.
No problem.
Okay. Great. So with that, we can adjourn until we can get everybody here, unless Senator Watson, who's already here, wants to work us through 319.
I sure can.
And then when
Yeah.
when O'Grady
And
and
get us
Duffy,
out of here.
because when O'Grady and Duffy are coming at 1:45, because they had something else happening. So let's move to H319, no, no, yeah, it is 319.
Yeah. Miscellaneous A&R.
Yes, what's up with that, Bill?
What is up with that bill? So this bill has many parts. I guess it is on the website. And I would, at this point, recommend, if you're wanting to look at it under Michael O'Grady, it says SNR amendment. So that's what I would look at. And there are many, as I said, there are many parts of this bill, but I'll start with the part that I think is most relevant to approps, which is section 32 of the bill. One of the things that
What section?
32
Okay.
it should be called contingent implementation funding.
Is this, okay, is the fiscal note as your committee, as recommended by Senate? I'm looking at the fiscal note.
Oh, you're looking at the fiscal note?
That was chloride.
Maybe I should.
contamination.
Yes. So one of the things that happened with 319 is that it became a vehicle for the chloride bill, which had, I think, a particularly interesting path. We started it in the Senate, in Senate Natural Resources. It went to Judiciary. They had robust conversation. Simultaneously, there were also conversations happening in the House about, in both the environment, and then it went to Judiciary in the House as well. And so we took all of that language and synthesized it really into what you see in 319, which is altogether, it is, if I can get you exactly the right. Yep, so it's section 27 through 32. Because this bill had kind of a circuitous path, it does not have any funding in, actually, let me back up. As to what this bill does, it creates a voluntary program for commercial salt applicators to participate in which they would learn about best management practices for salt application on roads, parking lots, and sidewalks. And because there is a lot of pressure to oversalt for safety, the vision was to give them some kind of liability relief from slip and fall type accidents if they were following best management practices, if they were keeping records, et cetera.
Right.
And so, and I mean, the underlying reason that we were taking it up at all in our committee was because salt is showing up in basically every lake and pond and waterway in Vermont, and some of it is becoming very problematic at the levels that we're seeing. It's starting to impact aquatic biota. So this doesn't mandate that anybody do anything, but it just creates a tool for hopefully educating people as to how they can salt less. And there is also a parallel municipal track to that, which I can go into if that's of interest.
And the work that A&R has, they wanted to position our money for it, but now that they're going to do it without that.
Well, so because we missed the window of getting it into the budget for this year, Section 32 just makes implementation of that program contingent upon the appropriation from the general fund. And we didn't tie it to a specific year. We just thought, you know, maybe it's next year, maybe it's the year after, but would love to get it up and running as soon as we can, but didn't want to have this unfunded mandate hanging on to A&R without an appropriation to go with them. The vision is for the fees that would be collected from this program to then subsidize the program, but anticipating that may not be enough to cover the whole cost. And the other thing that is worth mentioning here is that this program is based on a very similar program in New Hampshire, in which their fees do actually cover all of the costs for the New Hampshire program.
Did New Hampshire reduce the liabilities? Did they get that part done?
Yes, and in fact, they've actually had a case go through the whole legal process of, there was a slip and fall, against, a suit against, a company that had gone through their process and it held up. Our judiciary has a different, version of the liability, relief. It's, instead of just, you actually probably could speak more to this than I could, but it's an affirmative defense, rather, and a rebuttable presumption of compliance, rather than,
Yeah.
relief from liability, except in the case of like gross negligence or something.
It's less of a protection.
Right.
But it is a protection.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, I think, the most direct, application to, the Appropriations, Committee. There are other spending specific things. There is this amendment about Rygate, which is section 33.
So if I might
Yes.
just, in reference to the position, was there an amount fixed to that or?
No, there's no position created for this, and there's no money associated.
Well,
It
I
just,
said it was contingent on, but the salt applicator,
right, so this, I don't think that this creates any position.
okay.
I mean, we're hoping that it ends up actually in the governor's recommend for next year. I mean, we'll see, but, that might come with a position. It may come with some money, but we're also anticipating, doing it similar to how New Hampshire does it, in which they contract out the education portion, with a third-party vendor. So, they do still have an in-house, staff person to do that coordinating. So we may anticipate something similar, but they may not be running the program themselves.
We took testimony from her, so.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, that's right.
There is this Rygate section?
Section 33, which is not in the fiscal note. I flag it just because it is an extension of the deadlines, for their process, getting up and running. And so that, I think, has some implications for the rate that they are getting for their power. But I'm happy to go into that if that, again, is of interest. I realize that the Rygate portion is perhaps deja vu for some folks. But they have a new owner, and
When did they get a new one?
I think it was within my impression was, yeah, it was within the last year. Yeah. So, they are, changing their plans. They're just going to dry wood chips, dry their own wood chips on site with the excess heat, and then use those in the process. So they're cannibalizing some of that energy, which is,
But that was the plan prior to.
I think it sounds like the plan had changed and that this was a new plan. And
Do you know
so
who the new owner? Do we know who the new owner?
she's been in, I forget her last name. The first name is Liddy. Yeah, go ahead. No.
She was the fund that had financed the previous owners, and when they were not able to go forward with their plan, she took over.
Oh, okay. She was like the equity fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then was that the testimony basically that the new owner, all the same regulations pertain, but they just were giving another year to meet those?
Yes.
requirements?
And we actually made it so that they have to resubmit their plan because it's a new plan. So that's a separate issue, but, yeah.
So it's just dates.
Yeah,
Which section is that you require the reporting of who's got covered salt sheds and not the municipality?
Oh, yeah,
Because there are
okay.
3 of us here that.
Yes, yeah, but with transportation, thank you. So going back to the salt bill, section 29 originally the salt bill had a requirement to cover salt sheds, and the transportation committee had an amendment to that. Through the conversation that happened in the House, they wanted to just to scale that back and just do an inventory of state and municipal salt, sand and mix of salt and sand sheds. In general, want those that were covered, they want to know which are uncovered and within 100 yards of a water body or drinking water source, or further away than 100 yards. So like how much risk is there that it's, this water is getting directly contaminated. And it also requires a total cost estimate to cover or move those salt piles, which if we were ever to say thou shalt cover your municipal or state salt shed, we would have a good understanding of
What
that.
we were doing.
That would cost.
His testimony we took is that almost a third of the salt shed within the Champlain Valley region were uncovered. And that's where we concentrated the most. So if that's not, I suspect there's a lot outside of the Champlain Valley.
Yeah, and I should think that it would be to everyone's advantage to cover them if that's not overly expensive, because that, otherwise it's just gonna wash away.
Elmore, it took them almost 15 years to get up the money to move their salt shed out of within 100 and something yards of
away.
Lake Elmore. It took them almost 15 years to put the money together.
Yeah, well, it may be easier to do when you've basically run your salt pile down to nothing, and if you have another alternative site, there may be easier ways to go about it, but we'll find out. So that's
I think it's good to collect the information.
Continuing on, there are other parts of this bill that are, I would call them less pertinent to appropriations as much as they're pertinent to finance, because they have to do with fees.
I was gonna ask you about that. I see
Yes.
finance in here.
Yes, so,
There is a Vermont, to Senator Weston's question, which I don't remember talking about in transportation, about the curriculum.
oh yeah, so that is with,
Is that part of the stuff that is contingent on the appropriation? Is that part of the sections, and all the salt stuff, all the salt sections are contingent?
actually, let me get back to it. Let's just look.
All of the salt sections are contingent except for the inventory report.
Okay,
And the curriculum,
so the curriculum would be contingent.
Contingent.
yeah.
Okay, so it's just section 29. That's not.
That's not included.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, are we ready to talk about household hazardous waste? I can.
Section 7.
I can.
So you got any
jump
money
into it.
attached to it?
No, it's all pretty indirect. So the household hazardous waste extended producer responsibility organization that we set up last year is relatively new, and so as it is rolling out, the agency wanted more time to phase it in, and so it first just starts with a registration. Let's just understand who is in the universe for this, and then sometime after that, it establishes an initial collection plan, which runs for no more than 3 years. And then after that 3-year initial plan, then it starts, transitions into the more traditional permanent plan. The initial plan is simpler and should be easier, particularly for this new group to come together and work through as we phase that in. So the collection still would have to meet all the standards of free for consumers. It has to be convenient. It has to reimburse the municipalities or the SWMEs for their costs. So it's just phasing it in over time. I'm sure there are probably things that I'm missing here that are.
Are we expecting them to meet the July 1st, 2025 deadline in manufacturing?
I believe we are. Yeah. So.
There is the authority that if they don't an A&R can establish their own plan and then charge the manufacturers for the cost of that plan plus a 10% assessment.
Oh, that's
And
right.
that's Michael agreed from last council, because I don't think we clarified that.
That's right.
earlier.
So that was a motivation for them to form their own plan, because if they don't, then we make our own and we charge them more.
Right, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Get after it. And so then there is, I'm gonna move on if there's not more questions about that. So also in implementing the household hazardous waste program, products that would have been caught in that include things like paint thinners or aerosols, paint-related products that would be qualified as hazardous, but paint, particularly architectural paint, already has an extended producer responsibility organization. And that's already working well, very established. And so the producers of those products wanted to have these paint-related products that are not architectural paint, paint thinners, aerosols, etc. They wanted to transition those out of the household hazardous waste program and into the paint program. This part was actually not fully baked by the time it came over to us from the House. The paint, like the coatings industry wanted more time to work on that language. They did figure it out. They came to some consensus with the agency, and so that is the language that you see here, that removes paint-related products from the household hazardous waste program and establishes it in the paint program. And one of the things that is worth mentioning about that is that the paint program has the way that they are structured, it includes upfront fees to the consumer for that disposal. And so those are not currently in statute, but this does establish them in statute. And if I can find it, is section 10.
Page 37 and page 38.
Yeah.
Also page 2 on the fiscal.
Oh, yes. And so those fees that you see there are what is already status quo. That is what we're just codifying it. But then for these new products that would be newly included in the paint program, there's a fee report so that they have time to figure out what the fees ought to be, and it'll make a recommendation to the legislature, and we would approve the fees as we would just like any other fee.
Yes, Caroline.
So quick question on that, I don't know whether you can answer that or not, but I know that the fees go to pay for the program itself. Is there a special fund for those fees? How does that happen?
I'm not sure.
Trying to remember.
James Duffy, joined the squad. So the question regarding the household hazardous waste program.
The paint.
Yeah, so that revenue is never actually seen by
We
the
don't
city.
see it, right?
It's collected, or it's imposed on the producer, passed on to the consumer, paid for at the retail counter, and is remitted to the stewardship organization that runs the collection events for
Do we get a cost accounting of that?
in fiscal year, calendar year 2024, the stewardship organization for paint specifically collected about $995,000 in revenue through those fees paid for by the consumer. About 995,000, which is pretty typical for recent use. So consider it about $1 million per year in revenue collected by Paint Care Vermont is the name of the stewardship organization.
And then do we get a assessment or accounting of how it was utilized? How it was?
Yeah, so Paint Care Vermont actually files an annual report with the state that details all of their financial information, financial reports and the like. I can send the link to the committee if that would be of interest.
Thank you. Yeah, Mike. Well, I remember putting it in place, and now it's expanding, and look
Yes.
at all the money that's in there. Amazing.
And they use it basically
Functioning
to try to collect paid, so prevent it going to the landfill.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big time.
And just again, for context, with the household hazardous waste, these are some of the most expensive and difficult forms of waste to handle. I mean, we have these collection days, and they can be, you know, many tens of thousands of dollars to run. And and right now, the solid waste management entities are having to eat that cost, which then comes back to us all through our property taxes. So this should ultimately help with that.
Okay.
So
Yes,
just a quick question. So does this relate to any additional cost to the consumer? And who enforces this? Do we have like the paint police out there someplace to see people, or who does this?
So well, actually, maybe others. I can take a stab, but.
So the official enforcement is A&R, the default enforcement authority, and they can approve or disapprove a manufacturer or the stewardship organization itself. The enforcement on a day-to-day basis and the collection of the fee, that's the retailers. And when this program was set up, the retailers came forward and said they wanted to be the ones to collect. They wanted to be there because they saw, and some of them act as collection points because it brings people back into the store. And so officially A&R has all the enforcement authority it traditionally has on a day-to-day basis, and the collection of the fee is the retailers.
Are they required to collect it?
No, they're not. They can opt in.
To the other part of your question, the fees that are established in here are already what's in place. And so it's just codifying those. And then there'll be a fee report due back as to these new products that would be included in the program.
And A&R makes that decision, that's what the new products are?
What the new products are? No, they're.
To be included in this?
So they are defined in here, which new products would be transitioned to paint. But it's things like, I mean, I mentioned paint thinners and aerosols, but, you know, I think there's all, you know, forms of hazardous coating, you know, things you might use on your car, you know, stuff like that. I can find you the list if you wish.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no questions for Senator Watson. Mr. Duffy, do you want to have anything to say about we went over the sections that are in your fiscal note, but I don't know if you want to highlight anything in there for our attention.
So again, James Duffy, Joint Fiscal Office. I'm not sure if the committee already discussed section 7 pertaining to that contingency, in which A&R would be able to impose a fee, an additional fee on manufacturers who don't comply with the new household hazardous waste program requirements by the deadline of July 1st, 2025. Just in case the committee hasn't reviewed that section in depth yet, this section is essentially just a contingency that would allow the agency to collect the cost from manufacturers of setting up a collection program.
10% of the plan.
Exactly, 10% of the plan's cost, and
spread around amongst all the manufacturers of any specific household hazardous.
My understanding is it would be specific to whoever is responsible for filing that plan. And so that might be one manufacturer, it could be several, depending on what product we're talking about, if they have a stewardship organization formed. The bottom line for that section is that A&R expects this provision, and from their interactions with the regulated community, they're expecting full compliance with this section and not expecting this provision to be imposed. So to the extent this is triggered, it would bring in about $500,000 roughly per plan, but the agency is not expecting this to be triggered.
Okay, and there's how many plans are needed, like how many items, do we know?
I'm not aware of what the potential universe might be here, given the scope of
Is it like hundreds of items? I mean, there's a lot of household hazardous waste items.
Can be a lot.
Mhm.
So normally these programs are set up to incent only one or two plans because of the nature of a number of these products. There might be additional plans, so you collect or coordinate the different types of materials under different plans. I don't think the agency expects more than 5 or 6 plans.
Do we have plans now? Is there some things that already have plans that we're adding in?
Not yet.
So that's that kind of contingency section of the bill. I think the next section that I would just maybe add some additional color to are sections 10 and 11. So we've already discussed the fees that are paid for by the consumer when they purchase architectural paint or when these new program requirements are imposed, not just architectural paint, these other 3 new categories of paint products. So that would impose an additional cost on the consumer. The cost of the fee for these newly covered products would require on the fee that's approved by the General Assembly following the fee report that's filed by the Agency of Natural Resources. I would just note that the fee imposed to cover the cost of paint collection and paint disposal is included in the taxable sales price of the products. That's a finding of information by the tax department that this fee is included in the taxable purchase price.
So they charge tax. Charge tax on the fee.
Yes, this fee is, so you can think of the fee as kind of an addition to the base, the sales tax base for these products. So you would expect to see a marginal increase in the sales tax collected on these products as a result of these fees. Again, it would depend on the fee schedule that's ultimately
The
approved.
fees are being charged now, but they're
For architectural paint.
but they're the taxes are the taxes on them now too?
Yes, and so just to give a sense of.
So it'd only be on the 3 other items.
That's right, and on architectural paint, the fees imposed on architectural paint raise probably an estimated $60,000 in additional sales tax revenue fiscal year 24, so you could expect the additional sales tax revenue to be somewhere around there from these new products, but that's
Probably low
about.
because it's not, you don't buy as much of those other products as you pay. It's probably gonna be like 500.
And then that 60,000 figure that I just cited would be, 0.1% of the sales tax collected a year. So all in all, a marginal additional sales tax collection.
Okay.
And then finally, I heard the committee talking about this as I was coming in, but those sections pertaining to the establishment of the chloride contamination reduction program are all contingent on an appropriation made by the General Assembly to ANR for that purpose. So there, there's no fiscal impact to those provisions as the bill is currently before you. It would depend on future appropriations by the General Assembly.
Great, like to see that. Any questions on the joint fiscal note or on the bill for the council or JFO staff?
Oh, there it is. Revenue program.
Okay, well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to pass the bill favorably.
So moved.
Senator Lyons, move. Yes, Senator. Lyons.
What are we exactly voting on here? The appropriations or lack thereof, or the bill itself is gonna be presented on
We're just recommending the bill be passed to the floor.
De minimis.
Because it's de minimis.
De minimis.
I didn't hear that magic word, so. I'm
Yeah.
confused here.
You could do the report.
You could do the report, then you could use the word de minimis.
Although now there's also
You
market.
could say it's less than de minimis.
I like that better.
Less than the minimum. Reporter, Senator
Mini de
Norris.
minimis.
Okay. 5/21, 25. So, committee vote on H319. Senator Norris.
Yes.
Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Baruch.
Yes.
Senator Lyons.
Yes.
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator Brennan, yes. Senator Perchlik.
Yes.
Okay.
One big happy family.
You just keep on getting along.
Easy peasy.
Just more FaceTime with America.
Do you want to do
All
this?
fingers point to Senator Watson.
What's in it? Do you want to do
Sure,
it?
yeah, it's fine.
You did the last one.
Because our YouTube page goes viral all the time.
All the time.
Okay.
Usually.
Blowing up. Yeah.
Thank you. That concludes our work on H 319. The only thing I want to do is make sure we vote on 472. See if you haven't seen the amendment from, we're waiting for the amendment from editing. We could vote on it pending if we trust that the amendment won't change in editing.
Oof. I'm good with it.
I'll risk it.
No, it's the first. We've already gone over it, so.
Okay, well then, if we're okay with, if you're trusting that the amendment is not gonna change, we can entertain a motion that we would move H 472 favorably as amended by this committee, or by the members of the committee, as Councilor McLean presented. Something like that.
So moved.
Read that back, please.
I can report this, so I'll report the amendment.
You will be?
I'll report it, yeah, so I can explain
The
that.
cart before the horse, but I'm gonna let it go this time.
Wow. Insolent clerk. No more so than the last one.
Okay, H 472, favorable with amendment. Senator Norris.
Yes.
Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Baruch.
Yes.
Senator Lyons.
Yes,
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator Brennan, yes. Senator Perchlik.
Yes.
Great. And you passed 472 so far.
Okay.